You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 15th of September 2025 on Monocle Radio. The Briefing, in association with Addis. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Tom Edwards. Coming up on today's programme, we'll be in Bangkok for the latest on Thailand's new government. Lebanon's International Theatre Festival is underway. We speak to the director of the event about the resilience of culture in turbulent times.
You see how much people proud of these cinemas, and you see families come to the cinema, and this is how we can build culture in any place.
All that, plus Monocle's Grace Charlton will be here too with a design roundup. Where are you taking us today, Grace?
We're going on a whirlwind tour of London. Hold on to your hats.
More from Grace a little later. All that ahead here on The Briefing with me, Tom Edwards. A very warm welcome to today's programme. Great to have you with us here on Monocle Radio. We start the briefing in Southeast Asia, where the new Thai Prime Minister is expected to submit his cabinet for royal appointment soon. Amongst plenty of other stories, a very busy day. Here to tell us what's making the headlines across the region is Monocle's Asia editor, James Chambers, on the line from Bangkok. Hello, James. How the devil are you?
I'm very, very well, Tom. Yes, I thought I'd go on a bit of a tour around Southeast Asia today, starting here in Bangkok, where we do have a fresh government, and everyone seems to be very happy at the moment, but we're only a few days into it.
Well, yeah, and there's the rub. Look, we've been sort of chronicling this story over the weeks and months, of course, the sort of the rise and fall and rise and sideways moves of the Shinawat dynasty and all the rest of it. But that's interesting. More positive mood. Bring us up to date. Why are people a little happier? Is it because there's sort of hints of stability finally?
Well, it's been the downfall of Thai. Thaksin Shinawat is now in prison, which some people have been taking a lot of delight in. But the focus is on the new Prime Minister, Anutin Chanvirakul. He's from the kind of conservative faction, the Bumjai Thai Party, but his government can only last 4 months. Thai governments don't last that long, but his one has already got a pretty short term on it. And that's because he's got the backing of the Progressive Party, who said that they will vote for his minority government, provided he calls an election within 4 months of his policy statement. So he's been busy getting a cabinet together, a quite respected group of people. He's gone for kind of experts and technocrats because he hasn't got that much time. And he's going to be submitting that policy statement to Parliament this month, and then that kind of fires the gun on his 4 months. So I guess a lot of the focus will be very much one eye on the election, because he is going to be one of the top candidates. His party is expected to do well, and so it'll be about trying to impress voters and trying to assuage some of their top concerns and trying to get money into their pockets.
Well, yeah, and this is the rub, isn't it, James? Usually, well, it's the old cliche, right? It's the economy stupid, the country, like so many other markets, it's looking at growth. There's some concern about the medium-term picture. And the idea is that, in order to kickstart progress in that regard, Thailand needs a couple of signature projects. And I understand there seems to be at least some expressions of, if not undertakings, to move the needle in that direction potentially.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, each government seems to have its own raft of sweeteners, and Anutin is going to bring in his own. But I guess the focus will be on the big projects. And for the Thai Party, one of their major kind of signature policies was to try and legalize casinos, which, it's a very controversial policy, but every time I talk to business people, large and small, it seems like quite a lot of support, not because everyone's pro-gambling, but they're just desperate for Thailand to have a big idea. Thailand's used to being the kind of leader in this part of the world, in this region, but it's it's been a bit of a stagnation recently, and they're very scared of the rise of neighbours like Vietnam. And so they want the government to have big ideas, and it seems like the casino one has been shelved for now. But Anutin has looked even further back, and he's now said he's supporting this very, very old and very, very ambitious plan to build a canal through the Kra Isthmus, which is in southern Thailand, and it would basically be, Southeast Asia's equivalent of the Panama Canal. And this is an idea that's been talked about for centuries, but it surprised me that, even for a guy who's only got 4 months in office, for him to kind of resurrect that idea means that it probably does have some life in it yet.
Interesting. Well, that's one we'll keep a weather eye on. Look, lots of people have been watching the Philippines, James. Let's switch our sights over to there. It's often interesting, isn't it? It seems to demand focus if there's an anniversary. Of course, it's the declaration of martial law was in 1972, and there are some protests, I think, on the cards, and people have been saying, it feels really edgy there. The army was on standby over the weekend. People even mentioning the C word, the coup word. What do you make of what's happening in the Philippines at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a busy time in Southeast Asia. We've had the protests, obviously, in Thailand, in Indonesia, Malaysia, and also, in Nepal. And it seems like, the Philippines now wants a bit of it, a bit too. As you mentioned, there's protests, there's street protests, or like a transport strike that's going to happen on Wednesday for 3 days. And then this weekend, on the anniversary of when Ferdinand Marcos Sr. declared martial law, protesters want to have a big march, the trillion peso march, against his son Marcos Jr., who's currently in power. And this is all about wide-scale corruption that's been unearthed when it comes to infrastructure spending on flooding projects or projects to mediate or mitigate flooding. And so there's been some investigations that's going on in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And it's basically shown that, over the last 3 years, of the like $10 billion that have been spent to try and better prepare the Philippines for the annual monsoon-related floods, a lot of it has gone as kickbacks into politicians' pockets. I mean, they're using this term excessive corruption, which kind of tells you everything. So yeah. I mean, people in this part of the world are used to some corruption. That's just part of business as usual. But it seems like it's been getting a bit ridiculous. But what's slightly ironic for the president, for Marcos Jr., is that he's actually the one who shone the spotlight on this, who instigated all of this back in his State of the Union address in July. That came after a huge flood in the Philippines. And while he was walking around, touring and looking into it, he just realized that a lot of the projects that were supposedly being built hadn't been built, and some of the ones that were, which just weren't up to scratch. And so he made a big thing about it in the State of the Nation. It got all the houses, all the senators looking into it, and obviously they're implicated in all of this. But now it looks like it might kind of blow back on him, and a lot of the anger on the streets is aimed at him. But on Thursday last week, he launched another independent commission to look into it, and he came out and said, actually, if I wasn't the president, I'd be angry too, and I'd be joining the protesters. So we'll have to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, another sort of powder keg, it feels a little bit like. James, time is against us, so I want to quickly cross to Vietnam. Vietnam War movies, I mean, people probably have their favourites, but there's a blockbuster, well, with a bit of a difference. Tell us about this one.
Yes, that's right. I mean, we all have our favourite Vietnam War movie, but you can guarantee it's probably come out of Hollywood. And that's the kind of strange case of when the losing side actually writes history for us. Vietnam, the North Vietnamese won that war, but they obviously don't have the cinema industry that the Americans do. But there's a film that's out at the moment called Red Rain, which has become the highest grossing Vietnamese movie of all time, beating all of the kind of Hollywood blockbusters, even though it's only come out a few weeks ago. And it's about a famous battle in 1972 in Quang Tri province, which was apparently one of the bloodiest battles of the war. And the North Vietnamese actually lost that battle, but it seems like people have been flocking to see this. And it's you can understand why. This year has been full of big anniversaries for Vietnam. It's the 50th year since the end of the war in 1975, and it's also just a couple of weeks ago, it's the 80th anniversary of independence from the French. So you can imagine part of the celebrations have been buying tickets to go to see this film in the cinema.
Yeah, great stuff, James. I always put in mind of that the Kevin Kline character in A Fish Called Wanda. This dates me slightly when he's screaming, "We did not lose North Vietnam. It was a tie." But as you said, I think we know what history makes of it. But a really interesting one to watch. James, thanks for picking out a few great and important stories from across the region. That was our James Chambers in Bangkok. Right, what else is making the headlines today? Our Laura Kramer is standing by with today's other news headlines.
Thanks, Tom. Arab and Muslim leaders are meeting in Doha after what they call a brutal Israeli attack against Hamas in Qatar's capital last week. They are discussing a joint response. The talks come as President Trump's top diplomat Marco Rubio is in Israel to meet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A Turkish court has delayed a case that questions the leadership of the main opposition party, the CHP. The move eased pressure on markets and briefly lifted the lira. The next hearing is set for late October. And a Swiss watchmaker will raise its U.S. prices by up to 15% after President Trump slapped a 39% tariff on goods from Switzerland last month. Swatch says Americans are still buying and can also shop at stores in Canada and Mexico. It has also released a limited edition model that swaps the 3 and 9 to mock the tariffs. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much indeed, Laura. More news coming your way at the top of the next hour. Once the clock ticks through 1300 here in London, 1400 CET. Lebanon's 5th International Theatre Festival kicked off in Beirut over the past weekend with a diverse programme of plays, dance and music. One of the standout highlights of this year's edition is the reopening of the capital's historic Le Colisée cinema, shuttered during the Civil War and closed for much of the past 4 decades. Its revival, a sign of resilience in a country still grappling with political and economic turmoil. Monocle's Hassan Anderson caught up with actor and Lebanese National Theatre director Qassem Istanbuli, who's been instrumental in reviving theatres across the country. Hass spoke to him and began by asking what audiences can expect from this year's festival.
We have participants from Spain, from Germany, from Syria, from Iraq, from Sudan, from Palestine, from Lebanon. And it's important with all the situation in Lebanon to give hope to people and to give a life to the city, and especially in Al-Hamra Street.
So yeah, one of the big talking points across the festival and across the weekend is the reopening of this iconic Le Colisée cinema in the Hamra district. Can you tell us a bit about the work that's gone into bringing that venue back to life and why it marks such an important cultural moment for Lebanon's capital?
Culture is always important, and now it's become Lebanese National Theatre. It's a free space for people, and we have another cinema in Tyre and another one in Tripoli, the oldest cinema in Lebanon. It's important to program also movies and performance and space for people, for exhibitions, for doing workshops like what we do in Tyre and Tripoli for youth and for women and for children, also special trainings for special needs. Arts, it's rights to everyone. This is what we are working for 17 years for promoting culture and to give life to this place again and give light. You see how much people proud of these cinemas. You see families come to the cinema, and this is how we can build culture in any place.
The venue itself was actually one of few that provided shelter to families who were displaced by Israel's war on Lebanon last year. The country is currently undergoing a big transition with a new government in place. How do you see Lebanon's rich history of culture and art being part of that new direction?
I mean, this is moment about the war. I mean, the cinema, the 3 cinemas, it's become shelters for people. And this is important because arts and theater in war and peace, it should be remained open to people. This is why we do arts, because to humanity, and when people in the street in the war, and then we see that we are all together. And this is why arts is very important, because it's international language. If you see, we are all together connected by arts and all the world, by music, by cinema, by theater. And this is the language that can make change in the society.
And what have been some of the reactions that you've seen so far from people to the reopening of these important venues? And do you think that there's a real interest in bringing back arts and culture to Beirut in a way that it used to be known for in decades like the 50s and the 60s?
Yeah, in any place, in any villages, if you open any cultural space, people will come. I mean, because this is people, it's a joy. Arts is place of joy, place of peace, place of learning. And people want to, if I'm in a city, any city without theater, it's a death. I mean, if you give them art, they will know how much important, and they go. And this is important now. The cinema, it's for poor and rich, for everyone. Everyone have the opportunity and the access to watch arts and to also to be on stage by workshops. And this is the mostly important, because people see that this place, it's home for them and it's a place for everyone.
You've talked about the unifying power of art and the right that everybody has, regardless of their origin, religion, or political affiliation, to art. Do you think that that idea takes on a special importance in somewhere like Lebanon, which has a reputation sometimes for being divided? Is there something special about this kind of project in Lebanon itself?
I mean, if you see now when we open the cinema in Tripoli, for example, you see many people from the south, they don't go to the north. And also the people of the north, they don't go to the south. They're afraid of from each other. And when we open the two spaces, we break all these borders. It's not real borders, but I mean, people, they see that we are all connected each other, because in the south and the north, they have no electricity from the government. It's same life we have. But I mean, they see that why we are afraid from each other. And this is now you see when we open the cinema Colisée, buses coming from south and from mountain and from north to watch us. This is what means that we are all who live in Lebanon, that we can be together in one space, and we can see that we don't need to lose hope. We have a very difficult war in the south, and still reflected people. And after war, people need also to feel joy. I mean, to forget about this bad emotion they have and the tension they have. By this way, you can connect people and you can invite them to be all together in the cultural resistance.
That was Qassem Istanbuli, actor and director of the Lebanese National Theatre, in conversation with Monocle's Hassan Anderson a little earlier. This is The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Ticking towards 17 minutes past the hour here in London, where, for a glimpse at the world of design, I'm joined by Monocle's associate editor, Grace Charlton. Good afternoon, Grace.
Hi, Tom.
Now, what did you say? It was going to blast our hats off or something, you said at the
I said hold on to your hats.
Hold on to my hats. I'm metaphorically doing it.
Exactly. We've got London Design Festival. It's in full swing. You might have noticed on your way into work today, Tom.
Just people were talking design everywhere.
It's going on until the 21st of September, so there's still time to immerse yourself in the world of London Design Festival.
And if I want to explore that immersion, where should I go, in your view?
If I were you, I would probably start at Space House, where there's a big exhibition called Material Matters, and it's an exploration of materials in design. You might have guessed that from the title. But it's in a really cool space, Space House, which is a sort of space agey, 1960s buildings that's been renovated.
Nice. Another space that I like very much is the Barbican, in particular the Barbican Conservatory. I was reminiscing about the Noguchi show, and they had the amazing lights there. It's so beautiful if people don't know it. I know you went there simply for a lavish free lunch, if I've understood correctly, Grace.
Hey, there's no such thing as a free lunch, which is why I'm here today to tell you all about it. It was World Design Congress that was taking place at the Barbican last week. The first time that the World Design Congress has come to London since 1959. It's a roving event which happens every 2 years. The last time it happened was in Tokyo, and before that it was in India. But it was amazing, and it was during the strikes, but somehow they managed to have packed auditoriums, even though it was really hard for people to get there. And I had, a free lunch in the conservatory, which was delightful. Lots of little canapes and, sandwiches.
Grace, it's interesting. Obviously, you're on the road a lot, but you live in London, as most of us here at Midori House do. What is the status of London? Because lots of design aficionados will say, look, the city's always been a leader. We know what a great hub it is for the creative industries. But there are some who say, it's not quite the global design destination. That really grinds people's gears. But how is London doing? Where in your highly trained view, where is London at on global terms?
I have to confess that I feel really frustrated at how London is not a design capital. I would agree with the people who say that. It's not Milan, it's not Copenhagen, it's not like New York or even somewhere like Tokyo. It's just It really lags behind, and I think it's because there are too many events happening across the year, and there needs to be some sort of centralized effort to all put it into one big London Design Week. Because at the moment, you've got London Design Festival, you've got Clerkenwell Design Week, you've got Craft Week, you've got Architecture Festival. Like, it's just too disorganized. So I would like to see maybe some effort to consolidate. But that being said, I do think London Design Festival is on the up and up. They've got the different districts. The other problem is London is just too big to be organising a citywide design event. So maybe that's the issue.
Well, I quite like the idea that you kind of almost can stumble upon these things as you crisscross your favourite neighbourhoods. There's something rather charming about that, and you need the scale to deliver. Talking about delivery, we always have these things up our sleeve here at Monocle. New products, exciting new publications. And again, you cautioned me to hold on to my hat. You've said I will be bowled over by this next product. What is it, Grace?
It's our very first, but can you believe it's our very first time doing an annual special, which is just about design? Because I think design is something of, a calling card for Monocle, and we've never done an annual special, a full celebration of it. So I'm really excited. I was just looking at layouts with Richard Spencer Powell, the creative director. He's putting together something incredible. We've got graphic design, we've got architecture reports, we've got history, we've got essays, we've got news, and that is everything, and it's going to look sensational, and it will bowl you over, I promise.
It sounds like it will. What's the timelines? When's that going to be knocking around?
It goes to print in about 10 days, which is terrifying.
Okay. Back to work, Grace, immediately. But when's it on newsstands, etc.? Do we know this?
It'll be out mid-October.
Excellent. Grace Charlton, thank you very much indeed for rattling through. That was a pacey wrap of what's happening here in London and at Monocle Towers. Thanks to Grace for that. And that's all we've got time for on this edition of the programme, which was expertly produced by Carlotta Rebello. Our researcher was Daniela Bross-Smith. Our studio manager was Steph Chingu. Thanks to them all. We're back at the same time tomorrow. I'm Tom Edwards. Goodbye and thanks for listening.